everyone. It's Youth Art Month and March Madness. Welcome to Class Acts with Chris. Real educators, real leaders, real talk. Today's guest takes the usual college basketball bracket and turns it into who is the greatest artist in the world debate. And the great part about it is he does it with third graders. So I am super excited, and I've had the privilege of visiting his classroom and working with him on several different occasions. I'd like you to meet Devin Calvert, elementary art teacher from Milton, Wisconsin. I'm so glad you're here.
Thanks for having me, Chris.
Thank you. So let's talk about March Madness. And I don't know if you know, the real March Madness has been canceled.
Gonzo.
Oh yeah, well no it hasn't, folks, because you'll see it in Devin's class, only with artists.
So we call it Art Madness. We actually just wrapped it up this past week. I do it over 2 days with each one of my third grade classes. So I teach 4 different third grade classes, so they each have their own bracket for each class. And I start off using just 10 artists. And each year I do a different theme. So this year I did pop artists, living and dead. In the past I've done female contemporary artists. I've done street artists. I've done contemporary black artists. So I try to change up the theme each year so all the artists are related somehow. I give each kid a crash course in what each artist is about, because some of the artists they've actually learned about before, some of them are brand new to them.
Very good.
So after they learn about them, we do a bunch of voting, and eventually we narrow down the bracket till we come up with the champion.
So do they argue this guy's best or this girl's best, and who won?
We actually have had a different winner every time so far, and I've got one class that still has to finish, but Jeff Koons won once, Yayoi Kusama won once, and Klaus Oldenburg won once. So it's been a lot of variety. It's nice to see the different
Was Andy Warhol
opinions.
in there?
Andy Warhol got his butt kicked. Yeah.
Interesting. That is so great. And honestly, third graders, so a lot of times they probably come home knowing more about contemporary artists than their parents.
I get that a lot, yes. So a lot of parents tell me that, they come home and teach them a little bit about what they're learning.
Well, as a parent, I would love that. So how long have you been teaching?
This is year number 5.
Wow. Have you always been at Milton?
Wow, yeah, they kept me around that long.
No, I've seen your class and I've seen your school, and they love you. Tell me why. Start from the beginning. Why did you become a teacher?
I don't know if I had a why to begin with. I didn't come from a family of educators I feel like a lot of teachers do.
Yep.
I kind of knew in middle school that I wanted to be a teacher, although I was pretty dead set on being a history or social studies teacher. I'm very into history and geography and things like that. And then right before I graduated from high school, I started getting into art, and I enjoyed that and decided I would try that. And surprisingly, my parents supported me changing from social studies to art of all things. And here I am, however many years later, going through college, and I stuck with it and found a job and loving it.
That is fantastic. So you even answered what led you to that decision. Is there educators in your life, whether it's college or elementary or high school, that really impacted you or had an influence on you?
So I came from Fenimore, Wisconsin, and I felt like we had a very good educational system. I had a lot of really great elementary and high school teachers. Really made learning fun and connected with me personally, not just as a student, but I also just enjoyed talking to them one-on-one or in conversation. So I had a lot of really great experiences throughout high school, and then leading into college too, I had a lot of really influential educators, whether they're art educators or actually teaching me about the field of education. Yep,
very good. What would you say would be the biggest change from the time you were in school, and I'm going to say elementary because you are an elementary teacher, compared to now?
The biggest change that I feel I have seen is probably attention spans. I feel like I was more focused, but that could have just been a 9-year-old thinking that he knew what was going on. But it just seems like half the time kids are not even looking my direction. So I don't know if that's just hindsight's 20/20, and it just feels like I knew.
Right. No, I kind of feel like that too. And I'm not a teacher, but in the times where I've done things that dealt with youth or whatever, but yeah, I understand. Is there something that absolutely remains the same?
I think the interest in learning.
Yeah.
I think that kids want to learn and they like hearing new things, and I think that they enjoy being able to go home and tell mom and dad about things that mom and dad might know or
Right.
might not know, excuse me.
Yeah.
So I think that that's always been, I know I enjoyed doing that as a kid too, telling my mom and dad what I learned about in school.
Right, right. It's kind of fun when you think they don't know it and they really do, you know, you think you're teaching them. What's the most important thing students need?
The most important thing is probably love. Might sound like the chalk answer, but every kid wants to be loved. I think all kids are good. They just need that push sometimes.
Sure.
So I just always give them high fives, use a lot of hand sanitizer after that.
Oh my
I
goodness.
try to go out and I see them off onto the bus every day. It's not always my bus duty, but I always watch them out the door. I help them get ready. So I just try to make myself seen so they know that I care and I'm there.
Yep, I love that. What do teachers need? What's the most important thing teachers need?
Support, a lot of support. Sometimes I feel like we're oftentimes construed as like the bad guys. So I feel like, yeah, just having like parent support and admin support and even just support among fellow teachers
Yep.
and what we do.
Absolutely. What are your go-to resources? Where do you fill you up with things that you need and learn and all that kind of good stuff?
A lot of my learning comes from, I have a very large professional learning network, so just knowing a lot of art educators from around, not just Wisconsin, but from around the nation. So I connect with them a lot through social media and other forms of communication, softball ideas off of them, and sometimes I'll take their ideas or
Sure.
manipulate their ideas. So a lot of just connecting with other art educators and
Yep.
sharing.
Are you responsible for writing your own curriculum?
In Milton, as of now, yes, we've kind of have free reign to come up with what we want to do, which I think is great because it gives me that opportunity to teach the artists that I'm interested
Yes.
in. I don't want to necessarily have to teach every artist that, I don't know, like Vincent van Gogh, somebody I'm not particularly interested in, so I don't teach him very often.
Right, right.
Whereas other artists might think that he's more important, so I like to have
Sure.
that freedom to teach how I want and what I want.
Very good. What would you say is your biggest challenge in the classroom?
I've seen the last few years, it seems like the fine motor skills have decreased a bit. My first couple of years, I didn't notice it, and I know I've only been teaching for 5 years, but I'm sure that if
But
you
that's-
keep going back,
Yep.
it's been a common trend. But I'm teaching kindergartners now how to hold scissors, how to use a glue bottle, things that I kind of took for granted those first few years
Sure.
that I never had any issue with.
Probably don't have to teach them how to scroll, do you?
No, they're pretty good at that.
So speaking of technology, let's talk a little bit about STEM or STEAM. Why is the A important?
The A is important because I think a lot of people think that when we include art or arts in STEAM that it has to be painting or drawing. I think design is probably more appropriate in my opinion. I think that design is, I mean, we're coming out with all these products and all these things, but
Yeah.
frankly, nobody wants them or cares about them unless they look good and they're trendy. I mean, I think Apple is a perfect example of that.
Yep.
I also think that art and design teaches a lot of creative problem solving. I like to call it being adaptive to
Oh,
changes.
perfect.
I think that's probably my go-to when people ask me that question is it teaches them to kind of think on the fly and change.
Yep.
And just adding those tactile elements that you don't always get from other content areas.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think sometimes people think art is the loosey-goosey side of things, and there's a very functional, like you said, design element to it, and so you bring up super good points. You are currently the Wisconsin Art Education Association president and a member of National Art Education Association. Why is membership so important to those associations?
A lot of art teachers I'd say that they're on their own island because most schools only have one art teacher.
Yep.
A lot of times districts only have one art teacher, which is crazy. And we offer that opportunity for people to connect at our conferences and online. So that way you're not necessarily alone. That I talk about my professional learning network. I didn't know any of those people before I joined WAEA and NAEA. All those people were people I met through those conferences, and that's where I get all my ideas, and just makes us not feel alone.
Right. It is truly an amazing community. And NASCO is always excited to be part of both. Tell us a little bit about your involvement with Youth Art Month and how it progresses. Like, how does it start right to the finish?
So Youth Art Month in Wisconsin, we have 6 regional shows that take place obviously in different regions throughout the state, and those are run by each of our vice presidents. And their job is to host a show at a location that they see fit. And then from there, each art teacher can submit 5 works of art to the regional show. 3 of their artworks will be chosen then to go to the state capitol show. And the VPs, I believe, have their own way of picking those. So the VP might pick them. Sometimes the VPs bring in an artist to curate and pick out the artworks that they think should go to the state show. Once they're selected, in March, we then set up a big show at the state capitol, which is an awesome venue to have it front and center there for everybody to see.
Yep.
And we do it right in the Rotunda too, which is a really great location.
Absolutely.
And then from there, we all hang up the show, the board members of the association, and it's up for about 2 or 3 weeks. And then we have a huge closing reception. It takes about an hour, but we hand out prizes, we hand out awards. We hand out gift bags and goodies for everybody. We hand out complimentary visit to the Madison Children's Museum. Oh, it's a huge ordeal.
Fantastic.
We get some really great speakers. Last year we had Governor Tony Evers, which is super awesome to have him take the time to come and speak to not only the art teachers, but also to the little artists.
Absolutely. And it's nice to have somebody in leadership in government that actually appreciates the arts. It's not always about the best art either. I've been to the show, and even though there's great art and clearly artists that are extremely talented, I know NASCO has given out awards, and we let the board members pick. And this year we even had a student with special needs. I loved her art. I would have never known. And so I love the all-inclusiveness of Youth Art Month. And you see the impact on the student. Like, I love that. Like some of them come super dressed up and they're so excited and their families are there, which sort of leads me to this question. Tell me about a time that you felt like you made a difference in a student's life.
I'll actually go back to Youth Art Month for that one. This year, I try to include a lot of contemporary artists into my curriculum. So this year I did a project on Sarah Krajewski, who is a fellow art educator in Cambridge, and I actually went to college with Sarah. I've always loved her paintings. I actually have one hanging up in my home. So I actually introduced my 3rd graders to her artwork, and we made prints inspired by her artwork. And then one of the artworks I chose to go to Youth Art Month the student's artwork was inspired by Sarah. So then she actually my student had the chance to actually meet Sarah and get her picture taken with her at Youth Art Month at the state capitol. And she's a very quiet student, but you could just tell that she was
so thrilled.
Such a surreal moment for her.
Oh, I love that. That's fantastic. And it's so cool to be able to meet a living artist. And it's also neat because Sarah's also an art educator, which is very, very cool.
I think it's good for students to see artists like that. A lot of times we talk about either dead people or we talk about super rich, famous people. I think it's really good for students to see Instagram artists, see normal artists like Sarah and I. They can realize that art isn't just for the rich and famous. It's something that's attainable that anybody can do.
Do you show your kids your art sometimes?
I do have one of my paintings hung up in my classroom.
Very good. How about something really funny that happened in your class?
Something really funny that happened in my class. So there's only one other guy teacher in my school. His name's Ryan Phelps, and he teaches 2nd grade. We don't look anything alike other than sometimes when I get lazy and don't shave, I have a little bit of a beard. And Ryan has a pretty thick beard. And we have like a 2-year running gag with the kids that he and I are brothers, and just have like half the school convinced of that. And like I'll even tell them, well, obviously we look alike, and they like buy that just because we have beards that they believe that.
Oh my gosh, that's
But
excellent.
yeah, we get the question of why do you guys have different last names? Well, it would be way too confusing to have 2 Mr. Phelpses or 2 Mr. Calverts. And then on top of that, I told one of the 3rd grade classes the other day that one of the kindergarten teachers was my mom. So now they think the kindergarten teacher's my mom, which she doesn't care for because she makes it sound like she's old. But
She should care for it because you are so cool.
They
I
dig
would
it.
want to be your mom. So as long as we're on funny and lighthearted, the late James Lipton, he just recently passed away, and it made me so sad because these questions are sort of in the same vein that James Lipton used to teach, used to interview people with. It's just quick, rapid fire kind of questions, so don't think too hard, just answer the question. We'll do it teacher style because, you know, his was a little risky sometimes, so ready?
I hope so.
All right, what's your favorite word?
Oh man, I was not expecting that one. How about bodacious?
Oh, good one. What's your least favorite word?
Damp.
What is your biggest saving grace?
My wife, Julia.
Very
I
nice.
am required to say that.
No, you're not. What sound drives you crazy in the classroom?
Kids tapping pencils.
That is so interesting. What profession would you like to try if you couldn't teach?
Architecture.
Favorite art project you ever did with your students?
I do one based on Lena Iris Victor, who's a painter from Britain, if I remember right, that I really enjoy.
Very good. And one thing you think administrators need to consider in the classroom?
More time for art.
Favorite thing about teaching?
Aha moments.
Yeah, I feel like I've had those aha moments dealing with art teachers. That's it. That's all I got for you. Devin, thank you very much. You really are a trailblazer. The contemporary artists that you're teaching make such a difference on such littles, and I've seen them get so excited about it. You are the reason they come to school, no doubt. They're going to grow up not only to appreciate the arts, but they also are going to be creative problem solvers. You're an absolute class act. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate it.
So if you have any questions for Devin Calvert or about class acts, you can comment or you can email them to info@nascoeducation.com. Thank you so much for being here, and Devin, thank you. Keep doing what you do.
Thanks for having me.